Lovely. So we've got something very special, very exciting in front of us just now. We have a Springbank 12-year-old, but not just any 12-year-old. It was distilled sometime, potentially in the 1970s. The only reason we know that, it doesn't have a distillation date on it, but it does have very old units of measurement on it.
Yes, that's right. The old units of 26
so 26
and two-thirds fluid ounces and 80 degrees proof. 80 degrees imperial proof is around about 46% alcohol, I think. Is that right?
I'll trust you on that. My maths has never been strong.
Well, no, nor I. Oh man, this looks absolutely terrific. I'm very friendly with an amazing fellow called Sukhinder Singh, he's just sold it, but the Whiskey Exchange, which is the biggest trading outlet, retail outlet of whiskey, probably in the world, I think, based in London. And he also has his own personal collection of whiskies. It's probably, in fact, undoubtedly the best collection in the UK, certainly. He is an absolute expert I mean, he's way above me in terms of, sort of judging, and especially old whiskies. So some years ago, I was flying to South Africa, and my flight was delayed for 4 hours, and in Heathrow. His offices then were not that far, about 3 tube stops from Heathrow Airport, and so I phoned him up and I said, hey, it was about 6 o'clock in the evening, and hey, what are you up to? They work. He and his brother just work the whole time, and he said, no, don't worry, get off at whatever it was, the 3rd station, I'll send the car and we're going to have some supper. Well, I tell you what, we never had any supper. And but he opened some bottles and had some already opened bottles. We tasted these great whiskies, and we got onto the topic of scoring whiskies. Mm-hmm. Now, I never score whiskies. I think it's iniquitous to score a whiskey, because I know that I know the effort that goes into making whiskey. He said, "Have you ever come across 10 out of 10?" And I said, "Sukhinder, the 10 out of 10 is only found in heaven." He said, "I think I can find you a 10 out of 10." I said, "Wow." So he went off and he opened a bottle of Springbank. It was 10 years old, but made in the 1970s. 40% alcohol. It was a very ordinary bottling. Cracked it open, and I must say it was. Well, I granted him sort of 9.5.
Springbank is obviously a distillery that's got such a storied history. It's something of an icon in the industry. Just saying Springbank can get people's tongues wagging. So
Springbank is probably the most, if you like, old-fashioned. They've stuck to the old ways. Mm-hmm. It seems to me, as I've often described it, as being held together by elastoplast and baler twine. I think they still have a direct fired wash still. They've got a worm tub on one of the stills, if not both of the stills. But they produce they do their own maltings. Mm-hmm. That's very uncommon. They had a chart of tides. And I thought, how wonderful! They don't have watches, They watch the tides, but they discharge when the steep, when the tide's in, and so they gear their maltings to the tides. So their output is they won't increase it, because it's all geared to the making their own malt, and the Springbank itself is lightly peated. Then they have one which is heavily peated called Long Row, and they have one which is non-peated called Hazelburn. Well done. But the classic is the slightly peated. The style of Campbeltown whiskey, both Springbank and Glen Scotia, is traditional. I think traditional, which means slightly grubby, and. It's a fabulous whiskey, and I can't wait to taste it.
Yeah, me neither. Let's say unscrew this cap and
Yeah,
see what we can do.
please. Oh, what a treat. I am an advisor to Adelphi independent bottlers. In 1993, the founder of Adelphi, or the reviver of Adelphi, Jamie Walker, had been offered three butts, i.e., sort of 500 litre when filled, ex-sherry butts of 31-year-old Springbank. He could only afford to buy one. But so an afternoon trying to decide which one. I'm like, God, this is in 93. I mean, now, can you imagine what a butt of 31-year-old Springbank would cost?
That's the very definition of tyranny of choice, isn't it? When you're presented with such a wonderful selection, you know.
But I mean, as we say in Scotland, you'd sell your granny. You know. Now then, well, we've got a dark colour. It may, in these days, it may have been tinted. They may have added either Paxoret. What age was it? What was it? When was it bottled?
I would think it's sort of in the 70s. Yeah.
So pre the banning of Paxoret, which which was used as a colorant. So it may have been coloured up. Blenders adored Paxoret. It added a sweetness. That was why it was banned as a colorant. Because it was now they use spirit caramel, which is they say organoleptically inert. Now then, look at this. Well, it's very mild at 4.3, but it's got this. I'm getting a little bit of sandalwood. It's not like I'd expect on the nose. Oh, it's.
Yeah, there is. I know it's about sandalwood. I thought that it has a slight varnishy quality, which is always a very nice thing to smell, isn't it?
Yep.
You know,
I love the smell of varnish, and I know what you mean. But I'm not. And I'm getting warm sand, like sand dunes.
Yeah, I'm not getting like any sort of like coastal salinity, which sometimes you might associate with Springbank whiskies.
I would always associate it with it, but I'm not getting.
Yeah,
it
not getting
nose.
any of that on the nose
we'll
here.
In the mouth. It's deep and kind of leathery and kind of deep, but it's kind of closed. Whiff of brown sugar. Taste. Beautiful. Quite thin, actually. Texture.
Yeah.
43%. Sweet, tablet, sandalwood, medium length. A little bit disappointing, actually. A tiny bit disappointing but it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it's delightful stuff. I know what you mean. I get like a sort of caramel sweetness coming through. It's not as cloying as like you might expect from caramel, but it's just very, very pleasant.
Little bit of salt at the sides, that Campbeltown characteristic.
It's very Moorish, I find, and maybe that's the salinity I'm getting. I just find I just want to keep going back and having a sip.
Let's just slip next door and we'll
polish the bottle off. Yeah. So how do you think it would potentially compare to a 12-year-old Springbank from the current age?
Yeah, I have a group of friends, and we call ourselves Now and Then. We have occasional meetings, maybe twice a year. One of the members can source these old bottles, and so he will come with a bottle of let's say it's this 12-year-old from the 1970s and a bottle of the contemporary 12-year-old. And we taste them blind, we write our notes, and we guess which was now and which was then. We have never been wrong on Now and Then. Then, it's awful to say, but then has always scores higher than now.
Oh, wow.
There's greater consistency. The likes of Springbank, which is so old-fashioned. Right, now it's 43%, so but I think we should still add a little bit of water.
Yeah, it's always worth trying, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's that sandalwood, and you tend to find this with whiskies. Even blended Scotch whiskies, which have been made and distilled in the 1960s, maybe bottled in the 1970s, which I find so attractive.
But I'm getting a very nice sort of like fresh honey sort of taste coming through now that I've added water. It's definitely sweeter for me.
It does bring it up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's
No, let's try it in the mouth. Definitely sweeter. That slight saltiness.
Yeah, that's still there. I still find it very Moorish.
It's very. It really is a flavour from a different era.
Yeah, I think sometimes distilleries may deny it, but they say back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when you have a whiskey that says 12 years old on it, it says over 12 years old. So there may have been older whiskies going into this mix.
Does this say over 12?
Yeah, it says over 12 years old.
Oh, that's
on the
interesting.
label.
Yeah, because that was banned.
Yeah, they've ruled that out.
Yeah, and I think in 1990, and particularly actually in the 19, and this is of interest for blends, because they had so much mature stock lying around in about 1980 that they were sloshing in blended whiskies. They were using older whiskies, not declared, of course, but in blended Scotch.
Yeah.
And some of the blends put together in the 1980s are worth looking at. Never underestimate blended whiskey, I always say as well. Hey, Kieran, what a joy. Great sláinte.
Sláinte.
God bless.